Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is the 14th episode of Story in which the third Hokage finally resolves to do something about Naruto's treatment, and he seeks the assistance of someone known for influencing things from the shadows. When Naruto has everything he needs, including an elder brother who will do anything to protect him, what could possibly go wrong? Please subscribe and smash the like button. Now, let's jump right in.
Naruto landed silently on the branch of a tree. He was wearing a large black traveling cloak, the hood of which cast a dark shadow over his face, leaving him almost invisible in the darkness of the night as he traveled through the canopy of the forest. Glancing around, he observed his surroundings and tried to find what it was he was looking for. As it was, he had been searching the forest for around 40 minutes, even going so far as to use his clones to assist him. The rumbling of thunder echoed through the trees before the ear-splitting clash rung out over the entire valley, a flash of blinding lightning lighting up the night quickly after. The silence that followed allowed Naruto to pick up on the occasional drop of rain that was beginning to fall. He sighed at that, knowing that the storm would all but ruin half of the search. Izo wouldn't be able to track Sense, and Fu's bugs would go back into her hive no matter what she told them to do. That would leave only him and his clones, and Anko and her snakes to do the search. Luckily, they had already covered a lot of ground, so there wasn't all too much left to search through. The blonde's head quickly jolted to stare intensely in a seemingly random direction. One of his clones had found their target and dispelled itself. Thank Kami, he thought in relief. I thought it was going to take forever. Raising his hand to his ear, he turned on the small communications radio he had on. It's Naruto. I've found the target, heading to its location now. Follow my chakra to meet up with me, he said into the radio. Yeah, we're way ahead of you on that one, Anko said in reply. Akira found the place a few minutes ago and we're heading there right now, she said. Naruto deadpanned. And you didn't think to tell me this, he said through gritted teeth. Izo said you'd find it on your own and catch up anyway. By the way, nice job with the clones, really cut down on the workload for the rest of us, Anko replied. Is Fu with you? The blonde asked irritably. Yeah, she's fine, Anko said flippantly. Probably best to cease communications now. Don't want anyone picking up on it, now do we? Yeah. Good idea. Meet you at the target location, Naruto said simply before turning off the radio and placing it in one of his pouches. Taking off through the trees, Naruto headed straight for the target. After a few minutes though, the storm finally took action and began pelting the valley with rain, causing Naruto to slow down a little. Reaching the destination, the blonde allowed himself to drop from the trees and land silently on the ground. A quiet thud near him made him turn and see the grinning form of Fu, who like him was also clad in a large black cloak. Izo and Anko landed near them soon after, followed closely by the wet slithering of Akira as the large snake made its way through the now muddied ground. The team all stared at what was before them. It was a large and luxurious building, built right in the middle of a large clearing with natural hot springs. Such a location would normally have been found and taken over by a company or nearby village. This one though, had been taken by a wealthy tycoon who was keeping the location all to himself. Not really a big deal in the broad scope of things, but it was still another reason to want him dead. Killing someone who was greedy and spoiled was always easier. Team 28's mission was very simple: infiltrate the man's vacation home and assassinate him without there being any link to Konoha whatsoever. It wasn't all that difficult a mission, just not exactly suited to most standard Konoha teams. Luckily, Team 28 consisted of individuals who were very well suited to the job thanks to being trained in such things through root. Making it look like another village had done the job would be a cakewalk. They just needed to figure how they wanted to go about things. So, Anko began in a curious tone. Any suggestions? She asked. Izo shrugged. We could just blow it up, he said casually. Any reasonable suggestions? Anko clarified. We could go in as a team and kill everyone with brute strength, assassinate the actual target with a Doden jutsu and make it look like he did it all, Fu suggested. No, we're too close to Konoha for that. No doubt Iwa would accuse us of framing them and possibly cause even more problems, Naruto said as he thought over the predicament they were in. Why don't we frame Kirigakure? He suggested. Isn't Kirigakure Root's ally? Anko asked in confusion. Yes, but we have an unofficial agreement with the Mizukage about using their methods to complete missions. Since she is aware of it, she doesn't really care, and she has the proof to show that it wasn't them at all. Considering how many missing nin they have, it would be very easy for them to shuck the blame onto one of their rogue shinobi. We just have to make it look like this was a bounty hunting killing, Izo explained. Personally, I like the idea. That's only because you will take any chance you get to cause problems for Kirigakure, or more specifically, May, Naruto muttered. Bitch deserves it all, Izo said simply. As much as I want to know what the cause for this hatred is, even I think this can wait until after we kill the guy we were sent to kill, Anko said. Now, since we have decided on Kirigakure, why don't we figure out just how we plan on framing them? Should be easy enough, Naruto said. All we need is some mist and a few swords. I got mine already, Izo said cheerfully as he drew his sword. I also have the mist part covered. Naruto rolled his eyes at his brother and pulled out a small scroll. I have some spare swords for you too, he said, unsealing two simple katana from the scroll and handing them to Anko and Fu. With that done, he drew his own sword from its sheath on his back. He had replaced his old one shortly after the new team was formed. Now, whatever you guys do, don't go in hacking and slashing like morons. Kirigakure boasts some of the best swordsmen shinobi in all of the elemental nations, Kumagakure being a close second. They are trained to go for vital arteries and organs, which is what we now have to copy, Izo explained casually. A precise slash to the throat or a direct stab to the heart should do fine, but if possibly, aim to sever the very tip of the spine at the base of the neck. The more accurate you are, the better the framing will go. However, simply slicing them all cleanly in half also works very well. How do you know Kirigakure's methods so well? Anko asked curiously, a slight frown etched on her face. She was slightly annoyed at the fact that she knew very little about Izo even after a whole month of them being officially together. Not that she was going to pressure him, she was just annoyed about not knowing as much as she wanted to. Izo shrugged. I got a very basic rundown of their methods after I was given this sword, he said, gesturing to Kyoka Mario. They said that I had expectations to live up to as honorary member of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist. I didn't really care about that at the time, but I wasn't one to ignore free advice. Save the history story for later, Izo. Naruto grunted. Get the mist up so we can get this over with. The older teen mumbled a few choice words at the blonde as he went through several hand seals. Hidden mist jutsu, he said quietly. Within seconds, the entire clearing was filled with an incredibly thick mist which was only made thicker by the heavy rain falling through it. Anko grinned and gestured for everyone to move in, rushing off quickly after in her own attempt to rack up the highest kill count. It had been one of the first things the team had become accustomed to in terms of working together, a kill count competition for each and every mission, the winner of which got an all-you-can-eat session at a restaurant of their choice paid for by the losers. So far, the only one to win was Anko and, oddly enough, Fu. The mint-haired girl had accidentally collapsed a building on a group of bandits, so there had been some debate on her win at the time. Naruto watched as Izo took off after Anko. Turning to the side, he saw Fu give him a wave before going off to do her bit as well. Making a single hand seal, he created two shadow clones and rushed into the mist to join the rest of the team. From his spot up in a tree, Madara watched on in interest, his Sharingan committing everything to memory. He had been observing the team, or rather Naruto specifically, on and off for a couple of weeks now, and he could honestly say he was surprised with the boy's skill. He had thought that the young Uzumaki would be struggling at least slightly due to his upbringing as a Jinchuriki, but it seemed he was wrong. Unfortunately, he had yet to see any indication of the boy using any of his Baiju's power, so he was unable to assess how adept he was at using it. Activating his Mangekyo Sharingan, he began to use his Kamui technique, the space around him swirling and contorting around his eye. He would simply wait patiently until Pain reported his findings from the Chunin exams. It wasn't as if the boy would be an issue anytime soon. Kurotsuchi was bored. There was nothing to do, no one to talk to, nowhere to go, and less than enough to think about in an attempt to distract herself, and so, she was bored. She had tried to find something, anything to do in the mansion, even going so far as to see if anything needed cleaning or organizing, but to no avail. The house was spotless, and apparently organized by a family of obsessive-compulsive lunatics. The past month had been a rather simple time for her. After Naruto told her about her grandfather coming to Konoha for the Chunin exams, she was a little calmer about things, but she still wasn't happy. Having to wait so long for her own family to come and get her was not a good thing in her books. But at least her grandfather would be coming for her, and if what Naruto said was correct, then she could expect him to arrive any day now. Hearing the front door open, she lazily rolled herself over on the lounge and stared at the doorway, waiting to see who had come home. She was mildly surprised when a female Anbu walked in casually. The masked woman quickly turned to her and strode up to her purposely. Kurotsuchi Kamizuru, you have been summoned by the Hokage. He says you are to come with me at once, the Anbu said simply, extending her hand out to the girl. Kurotsuchi stared at the woman strangely. What is it about? She asked. That is not something I am required to tell you, the woman said somewhat rudely. The Iwakuno Ichi rolled her eyes. Figures there would be at least some Anbu who have an attitude, she thought to herself. Must not like me very much, along with the general population of this stupid village, she concluded. Standing up from the lounge, Kurotsuchi lazily grabbed onto the hand the Anbu had offered out to her, the both of them disappearing in a rather powerful sunshine. The pink-eyed girl swayed slightly in dizziness, the unfortunate result of being transported by another person's sunshine after so long of not really moving around at even standard shinobi speeds. Seriously, it wouldn't hurt if she was allowed to go for a good run every now and then. Glancing around, she saw that they were in the Hokage's office, with said village leader sitting in his chair staring at her with a warm smile. The thing that really caught her attention though, was the particularly short elderly man that was staring at her extremely sternly. Standing behind him was a very tall and large man who shared much the same expression. Kurotsuchi couldn't help but sigh. "Shit," she muttered. "Shit indeed," the short man grumbled. "Oh come on, Gramps. Don't be like that," the girl whined. "Don't even try to play light of this situation, girl," that Tsuchikage growled angrily. "What you have done is tantamount to treason, punishable by execution just the same. Hey, yeah right. As if you, or anyone else in Iwa, would let me die for a crime against Konoha. You and I both know that doing that would only cause more problems," Kurotsuchi said with a hint of smugness. She was making sure to at least tone it down in front of the Hokage, couldn't let him think of her grandfather as an actual pushover. Aniki glared at his granddaughter. "You should mind your tongue, brat," he spat. "If it weren't for the nagging and whining of the council, I would gladly obliterate you personally for risking so much against my direct orders. I will not tolerate my own family acting traitorous while I'm in charge." Kurotsuchi tried desperately to shrink under the old man's glare. She had gotten in trouble from him before, but this was an entirely new situation for her. She could tell, just by the glare he was aiming at her, that he really would be willing to kill her for what she did. That being said, she determined at best to remain completely silent from this point forward, lowering her gaze to the floor in an almost submissive fashion. Aniki grunted and turned to Hiruzen, who had been respectfully quiet so far. "Well then, I suppose I'm still stuck in your miserable little village for a while, ain't that right, Sarutobi?" he said with a smirk. Hiruzen smirked back. "I wouldn't exactly call my home a little village, Aniki. I thought you of all people would be able to see how truly large most things in the world are, all things considered," he replied, earning a grin from the other cage at the subtle jab at his height. "Hey, still playing on people's weaknesses. You know it isn't polite to pick on an old man for his height, especially when I can still run laps around you," Aniki said smugly. "Oh? And here I thought you still paid a masseuse to help relieve your back pains, or is my spine at work misinformed on that?" Hiruzen said with a light chuckle. The massive man standing behind Aniki couldn't help but chuckle as well despite his best efforts, earning him an irate glance from the Tsuchikage. "Don't you even think about laughing at his jokes, Akatsuchi," Aniki said. "The old monkey here gets enough appraisal from his own village. I do not need shinobi of my own added to that ever-growing list." "Sorry, Lord Tsuchikage," Akatsuchi said. The short old man grumbled. "Whatever. Let's just get the pleasantries out of the way so I can get out of this office and finally relax a little bit." He glanced at Kurotsuchi out the corner of his eye. "And also deal with the rather irritating problem before it gets out of hand," he added. Kurotsuchi continued, desperately, to make herself as scarce as possible. Unfortunately, that was next to impossible in the not-so-large office. Hiruzen frowned, but didn't dare to say anything concerning the girl. She wasn't even his problem to begin with. That responsibility now lied with Naruto, Izo, and Aniki. Whatever they chose to do with the girl was up to them, not him. So long as it didn't involve any major destructions or deaths, he was happy. "Well then, I suppose you should get to it," the Hokage said, casually flicking a small plastic card to his fellow cage. "That should cover any and all problem you might encounter in my village. Just show people that and everything should be fine." Aniki stared at the card, having caught it effortlessly. "It says get out of jail free card," he said, looking at Hiruzen with a stupid expression. "Yes, very useful that little thing is. You have no idea how many times it has gotten me out of trouble," Hiruzen said with a pleased smile. All three of the Iwa shinobi gawked at the Hokage. "You cannot be serious," Kurotsuchi murmured in disbelief. "I think he is," Akatsuchi said. Aniki felt himself get weighed down by what could only be the soon-to-be clusterfuck of stress that was sure to rear its ugly head at some point. "I should have just left her to rot," he said, glaring at Kurotsuchi as he quickly left the office. "Why the hell am I the one carrying this thing?" Naruto asked irritably, pointing to where three of his clones were carrying a large solid steel chest. "Because you're the strongest?" Fu offered unsurely. "No, Fu. Izo is the strongest of the team physically. We already established that. If I were the strongest, I wouldn't need 3 clones to even lift the thing, Naruto said. Maybe it's just because you killed the least people on the mission, the mint-haired Jinchuriki said. Who the hell are you trying to kid? Anko asked. We all know that he's the one stuck carrying it because he has the most chakra and because I'm the leader of this team and it's what I told him to do. Honestly, I was expecting more of a complaint from him over it. I didn't complain because you just throw as many sharp and pointy things you can find at me whenever I do, Naruto muttered. Oh yeah, I do that, don't I? Anko said thoughtfully. Yes, Anko, you definitely do that, Izo said with a smirk. Anko grinned at the teen. You've never complained, that's because you don't actually throw things at me anymore, Izo said. You said something about not wanting to risk the important pieces. The snake summoner blushed slightly and glared at Izo. I told you never to mention that in public, she hissed quietly. Yes, but I'm interested in seeing what you do now that I have, the teen replied. Can you do your gross relationship stuff somewhere that I can hear or see it? Naruto asked. I'd rather not be traumatized in that way. You say that now, but just wait until a girl finally lets you do things with her. You'll be singing a whole different tune after that, Anko said. I don't sing, the blonde said. It's a figure of speech, Izo clarified. A stupid one, Fu said. Anko growled. I am 3 minutes away from skinning you brats alive and feeding you to ants. That being said, I'm gonna go and give a basic mission debrief. You lot can have the rest of the day off and have fun, she said, walking over and giving Izo a quick kiss. I'll catch up to you later. With that said, Anko took off toward the Hokage Tower, leaving Izo, Naruto, Fu, and 3 of Naruto's clones standing awkwardly in the middle of the main gate into Konoha. The 2 Eternal Gate Guard, Izumo and Kotetsu, were simply gawking at Izo, probably due to the show of affection from Anko. Finally. Now I can just seal this thing into a scroll like I wanted to from the beginning, Naruto exclaimed loudly, letting his clones dispel and drop the large chest. After sealing away the chest, the 3 once again found themselves without any idea of what to do. Aren't the Chunin exams starting up in a couple of days? Fu asked curiously. Yeah, why? Naruto asked. Well, shouldn't we have been given forms to sign to enter it? The girl asked. Nah, Anko already got me to help her forge both of your signatures. We're all set to go, Izo said offhandedly, freezing at the glares from his fellow teammates. What? That isn't how it's supposed to work. What if one of us didn't want to enter into it? Fu said. Well then, tough luck to you. We're entering the stupid exam whether we like it or not. The old geezer has been wanting us to go into it ever since we got signed up as Jinan. Then again, he might just be doing that because he wants to place bets that can't possibly fail, Izo said. Personally, I couldn't care less about his motives. All I know is that I can kill some people in the exams, and that is temptation enough. Got a lot of stress to work out of my system. You just killed like 15 thugs on the mission we just finished less than 12 hours ago, Naruto pointed out. Yes, but the exams are a few days away. A few days is more than enough time for my stress levels to build back up. Seriously, you try living with Anko without getting stressed out. The woman is batshit crazy, the blindfolded teen said. But I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it, Izo. I told you, keep your relationship stuff to yourself. I don't want to hear about it, Naruto said. Now why don't we go and get something to eat, as in ramen, before I end up being the one who starts killing people for a change. Whatever, Izo said. The team quickly began their short journey towards Ichiraku Ramen. Naruto was just thankful that he was at least allowed to have a splurge after each successful mission he did. It was just one of the blessings that Mikado's rules allowed. So, what do you two think the Chunin exams will be like? Fu asked. Probably not all that difficult. First they'll pull out the mind games, make sure we aren't still little snotty-nosed kids who might best double as meat shields. Then they'll throw us into some survival situation that may or may not be fatal. After that, it's up to the Hokage really. Whichever way he thinks is best to cut down the numbers to a clear winner while also showcasing the skills of the remaining Jinan. Chances are it'll be some stupid arena battle, Izo said. Yeah, and Anko said that at least one part of the exam would be in the Forest of Death, so that'll probably be the survival part, Naruto said. That should be easy enough, considering we know most of that training ground well enough already. The mind game section though, that is always questionable at best. There are simply too many ways to test that to guess. The final section should be a simple matter of showing off and winning the fight. Will the other Jinan be strong? The girl asked. Naruto and Izo shrugged. It's possible, they said in unison. Izo froze suddenly and looked off in a random direction. What is it this time? Naruto groaned out. I smell blood. Lots of blood, the older teen said. The blonde suddenly perked up and took a few sniffs of the air himself. Huh, that is a lot of blood, he said. Isn't this a shinobi village? Surely blood has a common role around here, Fu said. Yes, it does. But this is a rather unique amount of blood in the one place. It's almost as if someone has drenched themselves in blood and gone around flailing bits of human around, Izo said. Thank you so much for that description, Fu said, trying not to feel sick at the thought. But either way, what are we supposed to do about it? I mean, it's not as if we can just go and mess around with whatever it is. And what if it's just a butchery or something? She asked. I dunno. I'm even tempted to go and check this out, Naruto said thoughtfully. And it's not every day that I am tempted to put ramen on hold for something. Fu pinched the bridge of her nose and sighed. Fine. We can go and check this out, but we're only checking it out, she said sternly. Mikado told me to keep you two out of trouble, and that is exactly what I intend to do, Izo pouted childishly. Spoil sport, he muttered. Just shut up and get going. The girl snapped irritably. Okay, geez. Naruto, hurry up and put a leash on your girlfriend already. She's getting all pushy and stuff, Izo said cheekily before leaping off towards the source of the blood. Naruto flinched slightly at the amount of killing intent Fu was pushing out in waves. Izo just had to say something like that, didn't he? Now she was going to be moody for the rest of the day. Unless. Hey, don't worry about him, Fu. He's just trying to get a rise out of you. I'll tell you what, if you manage to ignore him, I'll spend tonight training you to use more of the Nanabi's chakra. How does that sound? He asked. Fu's anger instantly disappeared as she smiled cheerfully. That sounds great. She chirped. So long as you don't fall asleep like last time or find some excuse to leave, she added warningly. Naruto grinned sheepishly. To be fair, his constant wanting to ditch the training sessions with Fu were for his own safety. The girl was simply not one to understand what holding back meant. The past month had done wonders for her skills and strength, but her restraint could still use a lot more work. There were a few rude operatives that could attest to that. It just sucked more for Naruto since he was the one tasked with helping Fu with her Baijua training, something much easier said than done. The Nanabi's chakra not only increased all of Fu's traits physically, but also enhanced the slightly more brutal side of her personality. He had taken a few good beatings from the female Jinchuriki before he was able to completely restrain her. Okay, I promise not to ditch you this time, he said. Just so long as you promise to at least try not to actually kill me. I swear you do it for fun sometimes. Fu smirked viciously. Who says I don't? She said playfully before following after Izo. Naruto pursed his lips. Brilliant. I have a girl actively trying to kill me, he muttered. Just when I thought my life couldn't get any more complicated, he quickly caught up to Izo and Fu, both of whom had already stumbled onto a rather interesting scene. The grandson of the Hokage, Konohamaru Sarutobi, was being held up off his feet by some weird guy dressed in a full-body catsuit type thing with a Suna forehead protector on. It took about 4 seconds before Sakura came into the picture, charging at the Suna shinobi and punching him straight in the nose. The boy dropped Konohamaru in his surprise and clutched his face in pain while Sakura quickly helped the young Sarutobi to his feet and went to run away with him. The Suna nin extended a hand towards the pinkette, making her trip over seemingly nothing. As this went on, the 3 members of Team 28 watched on with interest. Well, it looks like Sakura is improving, Naruto said, glancing over to Izo. I suppose you and Anko had something to do with that. Not really. I gave her some notes on complex Fuinjutsu and Anko gave her a couple of taijutsu lessons for good measure, but we haven't actually started her training yet, Izo replied. But at least it should be easier now that she isn't so wimpy. Should we help her? Fu asked. Nah. Just wait until she isn't over her head, then we can intervene, Izo said. Until then, we enjoy the show, you bitch. The Sunanin yelled angrily. Calm down, Kankuro. A blonde girl said angrily. You're the one who started it. I don't care. I'm going to teach this girl a lesson. The apparently named Kankuro said. I'm going to assume a puppet user based on his little tripping up trick and the large bundle on his back, Izo said, observing the boy before moving on to the blonde girl. The girl has a very similar chakra to his, so I'd say they're siblings or something. She has a wind nature affinity, and is probably good considering the large fan on her back, he explained. I can't tell which one of them the blood smell is coming from, Naruto said. Neither, Izo stated. There's a third chakra source around here, but it's moving around erratically, not stopping for more than a second. It's also extremely potent, probably a Jinchuriki, he said. Shit. It's the Ichibi Jinchuriki. This must be the team they sent him with for the exams, Naruto said. Is the Kazekage a moron? Sending such an unstable powerhouse with a guy like this. It could have been intentional, Fu suggested. Perhaps the Kage was hoping on this puppet user's attitude to irritate the Jinchuriki during the exams, make him more likely to use his powers and showcase the might of Suna's personal weapon. Very bad fucking idea, Izo growled. Now there's just going to be problems. Okay, new plan. We need to end this right now. I don't want to have to cause any major destruction until the Chunin exams are well and truly on their way, Naruto said with a hint of urgency. I second that, Izo said quickly, both boys quickly taking off and leaving behind a confused Fu. What the hell am I supposed to do? She muttered as she took off after Naruto. Sakura yelped as she was pulled back to the puppeteer by what appeared to be barely visible strings of chakra before being pinned down to the ground in front of him. He quickly removed the large bundle from his back and stood it up next to him, the grin on his face being far more vicious than intended thanks to the blood dribbling down from his broken nose. Let's see how much you enjoy having a bone broken, he growled out. Kankuro. That's enough. You're going to get us disqualified from the exams. The blonde girl said angrily. Shut up, Temari, Kankuro said. You should probably listen to your sister, Naruto said warningly. You might not like how things go if you actually hurt Sakura, Kankuro snorted, or at least tried to. It turned out to be rather difficult with a broken nose. She hit me first. This is just payback, he said. Yes, she did hit you first, to stop you from hurting the grandson of our current Hokage, Naruto said calmly. I wonder what the Sandaime would say if he heard that you injured one of his shinobi for doing her duty and protecting his family. The puppeteer froze, his sister doing much the same. The Hokage's grandson? He asked shakily, staring cautiously at the small boy who was glaring at him. That's right. So beg for forgiveness before I tell my grandfather what you did, Konohamaru exclaimed smugly. Izo quickly phased into existence behind the kid and whacked him up the back of the head. Don't push your luck, Bratty said. We're only helping you out to stop there being some kind of political shitstorm from happening. Hey, it's all cool, right? We can just be on our way and forget any of this ever happened, Temari suggested worriedly. Izo quickly appeared next to the blonde with his arm slung over her shoulders. Normally, no, we couldn't just let this kind of thing slide. However, for one as cute as you, I feel I could make an exception, he said, grinning at her. Temari blushed lightly and smirked. Well then, perhaps you and I could work out a deal to have all of this overlooked, she said suggestively. No. Fu yelled as she landed next to Naruto. Izo, you know you aren't allowed to flirt or seduce any kunoichi, be they friendly or otherwise, she said sternly. Ah, but that takes all the fun out of life, the older teen whined. What the hell do you think Honko would say if she saw you clinging to another girl? Naruto asked. Izo smirked and gestured to a still blushing Temari. This is a prime example of exotic Suna beauty, my dear uncultured little brother. I have no doubts that if Honko were here right now, she would happily join me in admiring this girl, he said. What the hell are you talking about? Temari asked. My girlfriend, Izo said flippantly. You should meet her sometime. I'm sure she would like you. Hey. Get away from my sister. Kankuro finally yelled. I would, but I'm physically attracted to her. I just can't help but stay close to her, Izo said with a mischievous grin. That, and I would rather make sure that I can hold one of you hostage should your less friendly teammate try anything foolish, he added, tightening his hold on Temari ever so slightly. Temari and Kankuro froze. Gar, they both mumbled in unison. Oh, perfect. The walking sandcastle has a name, Izo said. And I thought Suna had just turned him into some mindless killing machine. You know about Gaara? Temari asked in shock. Of course we do. It's kinda a big deal when a Jinchuriki gets sent to another shinobi village, even for the Chunin exams, Naruto said. I didn't realize that my presence was of such importance, a monotone voice said quietly. Everyone turned to stare at a short red-headed boy standing on the side of the road. He was strange, even by Izo's standards. With extremely pale skin, a large gourd of sand strapped to his back, the kanji for love tattooed on his forehead, and an impassive stare that could unnerve an Aburame, Gaara practically set the standard for creepy homicidal child. There was also the fact that he reeked of blood. No one had a doubt in their mind that the Ichibi Jinchuriki would gladly kill them all if given the chance. Hey, Gaara, Kankuro said nervously. The redhead simply ignored him and continued to stare intently at both Naruto and Fu. Mother says you are like me, he said in the same monotone voice before wincing slightly. She says I need to kill you, he stated calmly. Ooh. Sounds fun, Izo said cheerfully. But please, if you don't mind, wait until the Chunin exams. Don't want to miss out on a chance to be Chunin, now do you? Gaara eyed Izo nervously, even going so far as to take a slight step back, something that was not missed by his siblings. He winced and grabbed his head in pain. Before anyone could react, his gourd exploded and the sand all rushed at Izo in the form of a large clawed hand. Izo quickly threw Tamari to the side and threw his left forward, the sand construct wrapping around and engulfing the limb almost instantly. Izo smirked viciously as he flared his chakra, the construct of sand freezing solid and several sharp blades of ice extending out of it to hang mere inches away from several of Gaara's vital arteries. Gaara was standing stock still, staring almost fearfully at Izo as a feeling of pure disgust forced its way through his entire body. Tamari and Kankuro watched on in actual fear as they witnessed their practically undefeatable little brother get shown up like a mere child. However, while they knew that Gaara's attack had been brushed off by the Konoha Shinobi, they also knew that Gaara could easily do a lot worse if he was pushed to it. The siblings silently hoped that it didn't come to that just yet. There was no guarantee that they would be spared amongst the chaos. Izo, Naruto said warningly. The older teen grinned wickedly as he calmly began drawing his sword. You should feel it, Naruto. So much bloodlust. The pure anger surging through him. Imagine how much fun it would be to break him down, he said, his voice taking on a slightly more maniacal tone. Naruto's eye twitched. He could in fact feel most of the emotions coming off of everyone in the immediate area, save for Izo's himself. To say that this Gaara kid was bloodthirsty would be the understatement of the century. It was almost as if his life revolved around slaughter. A truly bad trait for a Jinchuriki to have. As it was, Naruto was not prepared to deal with his brother going bonkers and the Ichibi Jinchuriki going psychopathic at the same time, at least not without going way overboard and giving away his true strength. Even then, he wasn't exactly confident that he could stop the two of them from killing each other. The blonde felt Izo's chakra flare a little bit more and instantly knew what was going on. Looking over to Gaara, he saw the boy collapse to his knees, his hands gripping his head in pain. Naruto knew that Izo was forcing his will through the boy, but he also knew that an unstable Jinchuriki could react rather badly to it. So, without much effort, Naruto managed to counter Izo's will with his own. Izo de-escaped as he stopped. Fine. Have it your way, he said. Personally, I don't think letting him go anywhere is a good idea right now, at least not without his seal being checked. You have no authority over him and you will not be touching his seal, a voice said sternly. Everyone turned to see Asuna Jonin with half his face covered by a piece of cloth. Judging by how Tamari and Kankuro tensed up, he was most likely their Jonin instructor. It also seemed that he was confident in being around Gaara despite his unstable nature. Seriously, the kid just attacked Izo out of nowhere and said that his mother wanted Naruto and food dead. How did he even get cleared to go into the exams? Baki, we can explain this, Kankuro said nervously, only to be silenced by a glare from the man. There is no need to explain, Kankuro. I have been keeping an eye on the team ever since we got into Konoha. I know exactly what happened here, he said disapprovingly. Hang on. You mean you were here the entire time and you didn't try to stop your student from attacking the Sandaime's grandson? And what about Izo? Your Jinchuriki tried to kill him, Fu said, clearly not happy with what had transpired. The man, Baki, shrugged. I am not here to stop them from having petty squabbles with other teams. My job is to keep them in check in case anything worse happens, he said. If you want to make a complaint, go talk to the Kazekage. I think I will do just that, Hiruzen said irritably, finally making himself known to the group. Baki's one visible eye widened slightly. Lord Hokage, he greeted. I should probably have you know that I could very easily order your Jinchuriki be executed for attacking one of my shinobi, Hiruzen stated coldly. Be thankful that Izo is far more capable than he appears. I suppose I could also demand the head of the other boy as well. He did attempt to harm my grandson after all. The Asuna Jonin grit his teeth. Lord Hokage, surely we can overlook this as a simple misunderstanding between children, he said. Hiruzen glared at the man. Shinobi of any age are no longer children. That aside though, I am willing to let this incident slide, for now, he said. However, if I hear so much as a hint of your Jinchuriki causing any problems within my village, I will take matters into my own hands. Make sure to keep your team in check while you're here. I'll be having a little talk with the Kazekage about this. Baki frowned as he quickly collected his team and took off to wherever they were staying for the duration of the exams. Hiruzen watched them go before turning to the rest of the Jonin and his grandson. Sakura, I thank you for looking out for my foolish little grandson. However, perhaps a little less force will be required next time, he said, making the girl blush in embarrassment. As for you, Izo, you know better than to tempt a Jinchuriki into a fight inside the village. But, I suppose you can't really help that, so I'll let it slide. Naruto, Fu, I want you to be careful around the Jinan teams from the other villages. There is no telling if they have been given orders regarding you. And as for you, Konohamaru, you will be coming with me to receive the lesson in humility. The boy paled instantly. You'll never take me alive, he yelled, running off as fast as he could. Hiruzen sighed as he snapped his fingers, a single Anbu leaping off to catch the boy for him. I trust there will be no more incidents like this until the exams are well and truly on their way, he said, getting nods from all of the present Jinan. Good. Take care of yourselves. The Jinan watched as the Hokage left, the Anbu following behind him with a kicking and screaming Konohamaru in his hands. And to think, all that was caused by one useless little brat, Izo said. How the hell did he even run into the Tsunagais? Sakura bushed and chuckled sheepishly. I might have been chasing him with the intention of hurting him, she said nervously. You were trying to hurt the Hokage's grandson? Fu asked in confusion. She thought that a shinobi of Konoha would know better than to do that. Hey! He said I was ugly. He had everything I was going to give him coming to him anyway, the pink cat said crossly. Not that I even got the chance to get in a hit, she mumbled. Do you just go around hitting everyone that doesn't think you're attractive? Naruto asked curiously. I don't need your opinion on this, idiot, Sakura said. Whatever the blonde said. We need to get going anyway. There's about 3 days until the Chunin exams and I intend on honing my skills as best as I can before then. In truth, he was actually training himself to not surpass the set limit for a Jinan. It would look really bad if Izo, Fu, and he were simply able to carve through the exam like butter. Sakura quickly went wide-eyed and ran over to Izo. Izo. Can you please give me lesson on Fuinjutsu before the exams? She almost begged. I gave you a notebook on it. Shouldn't that be enough? Izo asked. The girl glared at him. A notebook doesn't help when I can barely understand the language it's written in, she said. Oh fine. I'll teach you something simple, he said. Just wait until I can organize it with Anko and we can get an interrogation room to ourselves. Sakura paled slightly. An interrogation room? What do we need that for? She asked shakily. Privacy, mostly. If you really want to learn all you need to learn for the exams in 3 days, then you are going to have to make sure there are no interruptions, Izo replied casually. Now, if you don't mind, I have to go and prepare for this stupid lesson. And I don't want to hear any complaints about what you're learning. Sakura nodded eagerly. Okay. So where should I meet you to start it? She asked. Izo smirked. No need to worry about that. I'll find you when I need you, he said, fading from existence in an overly ominous fashion. He does that on purpose, doesn't he? Sakura asked. Naruto sighed deeply. Yes, he does, he said. But don't worry, he's probably long gone by now. Actually, he's probably already on his way to find Aiko. It's really creepy how attached those two are after just over a month. I think it's kind of sweet, Fu said. I mean, it's still creepy, and a little worrying, but sweet none the less. Wait. Those two are actually a couple? Sakura asked in shock. I thought they were just saying that to freak me out. Nope. Those two are definitely a couple, Naruto said. An incredibly dangerous and dysfunctional couple, but still technically a couple. But Anko is older, the Haruno said unsurely. I would be careful of where and who you say that to, Naruto warned. I nearly lost an eye when I said it to them. Sakura spent a few moments trying to process the information before eventually giving up with a sigh. Whatever, it's not something I need to worry about. I'm gonna go and see if can understand any more of this book before my lesson, she said, walking off quickly. Fu smirked slightly. Izo and Anko are going to break that girl, aren't they? She asked, despite already having a good assumption of being right. It's a likely possibility, Naruto said. But then again, it might exactly what Sakura needs. Better she have a mental breakdown now instead of dying in the exams later. Okay, so what are we going to do now? The mint-haired girl asked. Naruto shrugged. I dunno. Go somewhere with food? Maybe you could finally give in to my dashing good looks and charm and go out on a date with me. The possibilities are endless, he said offhandedly. Fu gawked at Naruto as she blushed furiously. A date? She asked shakily. I know, stupid idea. I was just seeing how someone would react if I decided to act like Izo for once, he explained, glancing over to the still bright red Fu. Not as funny as I thought it would be, but not exactly disappointing. You could almost give Hinata a challenge with that kind of blush, he said with a cheeky grin. Are you saying you only did that to me for a laugh? She asked in mock sadness. Thanks to a few lessons from Mikoto, Fu now knew how to pull off the saddened and hurt look without much effort. She had the entire thing down to a T, with the watering eyes, the quivering lower lip, The slight upwards gaze, everything would factor in. Naruto practically felt the anomaly in reality rip a hole through his rather pleasant thoughts. He knew that, somehow, he had miscalculated on a drastic level and made a terrible mistake. Glancing over to Fu, he realized instantly what his mistake was as his eyes were forced against his will to stare into her sad orange eyes. The dreaded puppy dog eyes was one thing, and it was something he could deal with, but the sad pouty face that Mikado said his mother had used to manipulate his father like a soulless little puppet was a whole different game entirely. He had to give Fu credit, she was pulling it off perfectly, and she looked very cute in doing so, but he was also going to make her pay for it later. Mikado too would suffer his wrath for teaching the girl what was literally a forbidden technique written in the Scroll of Seals. Minato had put it in there after Kushina created the damned thing. Despite his plans for revenge, he knew, and Fu knew, that there was no point in him fighting it. The technique would just continue to crush his will, his hopes, even his dreams, until he finally succumbed to her wishes. Normally he would have been able to last a while against it, probably an hour tops, thanks to some special training from Izo, the only recorded male to be completely unaffected by the technique. But, as fate would have it, Fu was not quite done yet. "You mean, you wouldn't date me?" she asked in a near whimper, ending the question with a quiet sniffle. Yep, this was definitely Mikado's doing. Naruto grumbled to himself mentally. She just couldn't let me live my own life, could she? No, of course not, she has to go and tamper with it all. Now what the hell am I supposed to do? I can't say no, that would be a lie, and I can't just say yes, that could just lead to bigger problems. Needless to say, Naruto was stuck, both mentally and physically, until Fu let up on her technique. He is so done for, Fu thought to herself. There was simply no way that Naruto would risk hurting her feelings, he was just too nice to do so. He would more than likely give in and ask her out for a real date, and even if it didn't really work out, Fu would be happy anyway. She had never been on a date before, so it would be a good first experience. If it did work out though, then she would just be happier. It was well over a minute before Naruto finally cracked and let out an overly dramatic sigh. "Okay, I get it. Just please, stop it," he begged. Fu quickly dropped the sad and pouty expression, replacing it with a grin. "Finally," she exclaimed cheerfully. "It took you long enough. For a second there I almost thought you really wouldn't date me." Naruto looked at the girl fearfully. "How long have you been planning this? Seriously, there is no way that this was spontaneous," he said. "Oh, just a few weeks. Nothing too drastic. Just enough time to ask your mother for help and perfect my skills," she said casually. "That's terrifying, you know that, right?" the blonde asked. "You're over-exaggerating," Fu said. "Now, what was all that about dashing good looks and a date?" she asked curiously. Naruto glared lightly at her. "I'll make you regret this," he muttered. She grinned wickedly and winked at him. "Sure you will. But first, I believe you are going to spend at least one night making me the happiest girl in the world," she said. "Just out of curiosity, what did my dear mother tell you to do if this date didn't work out how either of you hoped?" Naruto asked. "She said to hit you, very, very, hard," Fu answered simply. The blonde groaned. "Of course she did," he mumbled. "All right, fine, I'll take you out on a date. We can see how things pan out after that," he said in defeat. Fu smiled and hugged him. "Thanks," she chirped before walking off. Naruto remained silent for a few seconds. "What the fuck have I gotten myself into?" he breathed out tiredly. "You truly are pathetic, boy," the Kyuubi said. "But at least you amuse me. Thank you so much for that. I really needed a confidence booster in this time of need," Naruto replied sarcastically. "You have a female that actually wants your company. How is this a time of need? I would assume that you have all you need," the Baijuwa said in confusion. "You have no idea how people work, do you?" the Jinchuriki deadpanned. "Do you have any idea as to how the society's events work?" the fox asked. Touche Izo and Anko were relaxing together on the lounge in the latter's apartment after having dealt with the issue of giving Sakura a lesson on Fuinjutsu. While there hadn't been any blood spilt or agonizing pain involved, both knew that Sakura would eventually wish there had been instead of what she actually got. "Do you think we might have been too rough on the girl?" Anko asked curiously. "I mean, I torture people for a living, and even I thought that was a bit mean," she said. "Aw, but I was trying so hard to impress you," Izo said, pouting pathetically at the snake summoner. "That's sweet and all, but seriously, shouldn't you actually be teaching her instead of being here with me?" she asked. Izo shrugged nonchalantly. "Probably," he said. "But you are much better to spend time with, and I get to perv on you without any consequences," he added, gesturing to the fact that Anko was down to naught but her bra and panties. "I could go back to kicking the shit out of you for perving if you like," Anko offered playfully. Very tempting, but I kinda like you when you're all cute and affectionate," he said, earning a whack to the side of the head. "Hey! What the hell? Don't call me cute," she said, scowling at him childishly. Izo grinned and pulled her into a hug. "Aw, that expression is just adorable," he said, laughing at the woman's responding growls of anger and her attempts to break free of his embrace. The two's fun was interrupted by a knocking at the door. "You expecting someone?" Izo asked curiously. No," Anko said dumbly. "Actually, no one but Kurenai even visits me. Apparently I'm too crazy." That made more sense than it should have, Izo mumbled as he stood up from the lounge, causing Anko to fall to the floor. "Hey! Don't just leave me on the floor, you prick." "I'm sorry my dear, but I need to answer the door," he said in mock sincerity before freezing mid-step suddenly, staring at the door fearfully. "On second thought, whoever it is surely has the wrong apartment. I'm just going to run for my life now." Anko watched in confusion as Izo literally ran away from the door and into her bedroom. She had no idea what had just happened, but she knew exactly how to find out. Scrambling to her feet, Anko rushed over to the door. She wasn't sure who was on the other side, but whoever it was, they were able to scare Izo to some extent. Pulling the door open in one swift movement, Anko came face to face with another woman. The woman was tall with green eyes and ankle-length auburn hair that was done up in a top knot and styled in a herringbone pattern down the back. She also had 4 long bangs that hung over her face, with one covering her right eye. Anko thought it was a bit stupid and impractical, but it did suit the woman rather nicely. She was also garbed in a dark blue dress that extended from below her shoulders to just below her knees. Overall, the woman was rather attractive. Luckily for Izo, she was also a bit too old for Anko to suspect her as a potential threat. That didn't stop her from making sure though. "Who the fuck are you?" Anko asked shrewdly, not at all attempting to hide her lack of real clothes from the other woman. The redhead simply smiled. "Hello," she greeted politely. "I was told this would be the most likely place I could find Izo Uzumaki," she said. "Well, he might be here, he might not be. It all depends on who the hell you are," the snake summoner said casually. "Oh, of course. I'm Mei Terumi, the goddamn Mizukage," she said, bowing to Anko. "Now, might you please tell me whether or not Izo is here?" Anko was slightly gobsmacked. "The goddamn Mizukage?" she asked in shock. Mei pursed her lips slightly. "Yes, I am. Now please, I would very much like to speak with Izo," she said. "What for?" Anko asked, her eyes narrowing on the woman. She wasn't sure, but whatever reason that the cage of another village had to talk to Izo about, probably wasn't a very good one and she wasn't about to just sell him over. "Well, as he is the wielder of one of the legendary blades of Kirigakure, as well as the honorary 8th Swordsman of the Mist, I am somewhat curious as to his well-being and the state of the sword," Mei explained. "I would also merely like to see him before the Chunin exams draw my attention elsewhere." Over the course of Mei's reply, Anko's eyes had gradually gotten wider and wider. "Wait. Hold up for a second," she exclaimed loudly. "Are you trying to tell me that Izo, as in Izo Uzumaki, is not only the honorary 8th member of the 7 Swordsmen, but also has one of the legendary blades of Kirigakure?" she asked skeptically. She had known about the honorary member part, but the sword fact was new. "That is what I just said," Mei confirmed. "Why? Is that an issue?" Anko smiled evilly. "Would you please wait here just a minute," she said sweetly, closing the door on the Mizukage. She quickly spun around on her heels and marched into her bedroom. Her attention locked onto the blindfolded teen cowering in the corner as she narrowed her eyes at him dangerously and trudged up to him. Reaching down to him, she grabbed him by his scarf and lifted him up off his feet, glaring at him as she held him there. "Izo, you lying bastard," she snapped angrily. "Why the fuck did you not tell me that you had one of the legendary blades of Kirigakure? You know how much I've wanted to hold one of those." "Okay, first of all, you can't call me a liar since I didn't lie, I merely withheld the truth," Izo said calmly. "As for the sword, I wouldn't even let you touch that for the most glorious blowjob in the world," he stated with the utmost serious tone. In response, Anko threw him across the room. "Why the fuck not?" she screamed. "I let you touch my boobs, you should let me touch your sword." "That is completely different," Izo said. "My sword can kill people, your boobs can't." Anko glared at him. "Is that a fucking challenge, boy?" she growled out. "Because I swear, if it is, I will smother you to death with these bad boys." "No, Anko, it was not a challenge, it was a simple statement. Now do me a favor and make sure that Mei doesn't come in here. If she finds me, I might very well die, Izo said in a slight panic. It is far too late for that, Izome said calmly from the doorway, watching the scene before her in amusement. Well, would you look at that, I have the sudden urge to cut my heart out, Izo said. Anko my dear, do you have a knife I could borrow? Oh, don't be so dramatic, Izome said. I'm not here to kill you, no, you're here to do even worse, he shuddered. You're here to be all sweet and caring, mothering even. It's just wrong, I wasn't very sweet and caring the last time. In fact, I believe I had to tie you down just to keep you from squirming, the Mizukage said with a smirk. Whoa! You had sex with her? Anko asked furiously, glaring viciously at Izo. No. I swear that's not what she's talking about, Izo exclaimed. Anka narrowed her eye on him before turning to look at Mei. And your side of the story is? She asked. Mei smiled. Oh, we didn't have sex, he was far too young at the time. I wouldn't even touch him now. The age difference is simply not appropriate, she said. No, definitely no sex. But I did have to tie him down at one point while I filed his teeth down to points, he just wouldn't stop squirming. You filed his teeth down? Anko asked, raising an eyebrow at the woman before bursting into a fit of laughter. That is just perfect. I can't thank you enough for that. Seriously, you have no idea how cool it is that he has a creepier grin than I do, she said. Uh-huh. And who are you exactly? Mei asked curiously. Mei, meet Anko, my girlfriend, Izo drawled lazily. And I swear, if you try to file her teeth down too, I will remove your fingers, he threatened. Mei pouted. Fine, she muttered. Why are you here, Mei? He asked. The Chunin exams, naturally, she answered. And also to check up on you and Naruto. You boys were not in the best of conditions when you left Kiri. I wasn't even sure you made it back to Konoha until a month after. Well, it wasn't like we could just send you a letter, Izo said. Konoha and Kiri aren't even officially allies yet. There are only so many people that know about the agreements made just for us to help you overthrow Yagura. I understand. But it is still good to see you again, Mei said. I did see Naruto earlier, but he was being led around like a lost puppy by some girl that was probably Fu. My poor little brother simply can't say no to that girl. It's truly quite amusing, Izo said. Is this Fu a teammate? Mei asked. Yep. Izo, Naruto and Fu are my Junon students, Anko stated proudly. They're gonna win me a fortune in the exams. Mei smirked at Izo. Oh, Izo, getting into a relationship with your sensei. How naughty of you, Izo grinned. It wasn't like I had much of a choice. She drugged me and I woke up next to her here. Next thing I knew, her tongue was down my throat and we were together. Oh please. My tongue was not down your throat, Anko said. I didn't even extend it with chakra. But, now that you bring it up, I think that I could come up with some fun ways of using that technique. Well, I don't want to keep you two away from for fun, so I'll just be going then, Mei said. And Izo, I want you and Naruto to be cautious of the teams from Kiri. While they are Junon, they are also very opposed to Jinchuriki. It would not surprise me if they try to make an attempt on Naruto's life, or yours for that matter, if only for the sword. Just be careful, and don't hesitate to kill them, she warned. You're giving him permission to kill your own shinobi? Anko asked incredulously. Why, of course. Once I get back to my village, they will finally realize that I will not accept them going against my orders so blatantly, the Mizukage said cheerfully. Small sacrifices must be made for the greater good, I'm afraid, she added casually before walking out. That woman is terrifying, Izo said. I kinda like her, Anko said. She's cheerful and straight to the point. Definitely my kind of person. I forbid you from being friends with her, Izo exclaimed. Anko smiled sweetly and patted Izo on the head. It's so cute that you think you have any control over me, she said. Now be a good boy and go and get me some dango. I am not your servant, Anko, Izo droned. Of course you aren't, she said, giving him a kiss. You're my student, which is practically the same thing, so hurry up and get me my dango or I'll make sure you're restricted to D-rank missions even if you become Chunin. Izo grinned, but his expression quickly fell as he seemed to stare intently at the wall. What's wrong? Anko asked worriedly. Anko, go to the Hokage. Tell him Orochimaru is in the village Omake, Sakura's Fuinjutsu lesson. Sakura was waiting patiently in her room for Izo or Anko to come and collect her for her lesson. In the meantime though, she was busying herself by trying to understand more of the notebook she had been given on Fuinjutsu. It was practically impossible, but she had managed to understand a small amount of a couple of pages so far. Unfortunately, most of what she could understand was nothing more than the base foundations for a seal to be built on top of. Considering the number of warnings written next to literally every seal, Sakura didn't want to apply the old fail until you succeed method of learning. Her attention was torn away from the book by a faint tap on her window. Looking out of it, she couldn't see anyone, but there was a piece of paper that had been folded into a kunai. Sakura assumed that someone had thrown it at her window. Quickly grabbing it, she unfolded the paper and read the rather short and vague message written on it. Sakura, if you're reading this, it's already too late. She didn't get a chance to wonder what the message meant before she felt a sharp pain in her neck and everything went black. When Sakura woke up, she was cold and groggy. It took a few minutes, but eventually she managed to regain her bearings and observe her new surroundings. From the looks of it, it appeared to be just one big room made of mirrors. Everything was reflective, the walls, the floor, the ceiling, everything. But that just allowed Sakura to take notice of the slightly more disturbing factor of her situation. All over her skin, at least what was visible of it, were notes, most likely written in a permanent ink of some sort. Her long pink hair had been crudely pulled back and tied into a messy bun, only to reveal that there were also notes written on the back of her neck. Sakura nearly had a panic attack before noticing a small note with a hand mirror on the floor next to her. Picking up the new note, she read it carefully, a light blush appearing on her cheeks as she did so. Welcome to the lesson. Today's topic, shame. As a user of Fuinjutsu, one must be prepared to place seals upon others. Seals that are placed on people are easily complex enough to require a large sealing matrix, hence requiring the sealing matrix to be drawn over most of a person's body. A master of Fuinjutsu must cast away their shame and embarrassment of nudity for the sake of their art, and now so must you. On the bottom of this note is a small storage seal. In it is a notebook and a pencil. You will use this to write down absolutely every word that is currently written on your skin. Using the mirrors around you and the handheld one, you have to see them all. You will have 3 hours to copy it all down before the ink will fade, and another 2 hours before the room unlocks and you are free to go home and study the notebook. You will use this time to become accustomed to the human body in its most natural form. P.S. I would start stripping quickly if I were you. 3 hours is not a lot of time and you have a lot of copying to do. Sakura read the note a few times to make sure she had read it right before unsealing the notebook and pencil. Setting the items down, she quickly stripped herself of her clothing, leaving only her underwear on. She couldn't help but blush in embarrassment as the mirrored room showed numerous reflections of her near-naked self. Sakura did have to admit that it would have been a lot more humiliating if she were being watched. Unfortunately, the pink cat noticed that the words written on her stomach and back seemed to continue underneath her panties, the same being apparent with words continuing underneath her sports bra. Why she would wear one, I don't know, but let's just assume that she's very hopeful. Blushing a little brighter, Sakura began to worry slightly. They wouldn't actually write the stuff over those parts, would they? She thought to herself fearfully. Hooking a finger under the waistband of her panties, she pulled them out and glanced down, only for her blush to increase drastically. Her fears turned out to be true, meaning that Izo and Anko fully intended for her to stand in the room completely naked for 5 hours in total. Not in her worst nightmares could Sakura have thought up something this embarrassing. I'm never asking Izo for help again, she swore to herself as she picked up the small handheld mirror in the notebook. Despite her embarrassment, Sakura was not going to let this lesson go to waste. She would do as was expected, this time at least, and copy down all the notes as best she could. If she was lucky, it would be enough information to last her a long time, maybe even long enough for her to find a different Fuinjutsu teacher. Outside the mirror room, Anko and Izo watched Sakura through the one two-sided mirror available. Neither of them had actually expected the girl to strip down and start copying the notes, so it was greatly amusing that Sakura had actually started doing as she was told. Are we bad people for this? Anko asked curiously. We passed the point of bad people when we kidnapped her. This is so much worse, Izo said cheerfully. All right, but isn't us standing here and watching her a bit too creepy? The snake summoner asked. Yeah, we should probably leave her to the task, Izo said, closing the hatch that blocked the view into the room. We can come back for her later, once we can be sure she is finished. Do you think she'll be mad when she realizes that we lied about the ink fading? I don't know. But I won't be here when she finds out. Needless to say, when Sakura was finally set free, she had absolutely no issues with nudity, and also a bit more intimate knowledge on her own physiology. That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.